So welcome everyone. This is a virtual community meeting to discuss a plan amendment case that was filed in the South Congress Combined Planning Area. My name is Maureen Meredith and I'm the plan amendment case manager. The case number is NPA 2021-0020.01. If you could please use the chat box, which is that little icon that you see with the arrow, so you can put your name and an organization if you're with one. We will use this as our sign-in sheet. If you are joining by phone, if you could please mute your microphone. Also, if you are on video, if you could turn off your video and also turn off your mic, that also helps to save bandwidth. So how to participate today. There is the speech bubble that you see in the menu bar at the bottom of your screen will open the chat box where you can type questions in at any time. Please limit the general comments until the end of the Q&A session. So what we'd like to do is during my presentation and the applicant's presentation and then the Q&A, if you could just use the bubble and enter your questions into that chat for now. That way we can make sure all the questions are captured and that we don't miss any of the questions when we have the Q&A. So after the presentations, you can click on the raise hand icon and call on to speak. So as I said, this is in the South Congress Combined Planning Area, the East Congress sub area. As I mentioned, my name is Maureen Meredith. I do the plan amendment cases within the city of Austin. And Mark Walters is here and he can introduce himself, and then the applicant and their agent, the agent and the applicants will introduce themselves as well.
Good evening, I'm Mark Walters. I'm a principal planner with the Housing and Planning Department, and I'll be moderating tonight's discussions. Alice, you want to introduce yourself?
You wanted to introduce? Okay, I was just waiting for the cue for us to proceed. I'm Alice Glasgow. I am representing the owner of the property, who is also the developer. And my team is also going to introduce themselves right after me. That includes Cass Brewer, Paul Shepard, Bailey Harrington, and Mark Odom. They'll introduce themselves in that order and tell you what their roles are regarding this project. Cass, rather.
Hello, my name is Cass Brewer. I represent the ownership with Legacy Communities and available here tonight to answer questions. Thank you.
And my name is Paul Shepard. I'm the project manager director work with Cass for Legacy DCS, representing the applicant. Thank you.
I'm Bailey Harrington with WGI Engineering. I'm one of the civil engineers and a partner over here at WGI.
Mark Odom. Mark was probably having, Mark, are you having audio problems? Well, Mark Odom is our project architect. He may be having difficulty.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now, Alice?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Of course, my settings were not correct. My name is Mark Odom of Mark Odom Studio. I'm the architect helping the group get through this.
Okay.
That concludes
So, I'm sorry, Alice?
I said that concludes our team introduction.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll go to the next slide. So again, this is my contact information. Wendy Rhodes is the zoning case manager. The zoning managers generally don't participate in these meetings, but if you have a zoning question that Mark and I cannot answer, or Alice and her team, then we'll for sure contact Wendy and get the question answered, and we'll post it to the website or contact people directly, whatever works best. So tonight I'll go over the case information, guidelines for group discussion, how to participate in the process, why is there a plan amendment application, what is a future land use map, and then Alice will do her presentation, then we will open the floor for questions and answers. So again, it's in the South Congress planning area. The property address is 4700 Weidemar Avenue, and it is 8 acres. The case number is NPA 2021-0020.01. The project name is Shelby Lane Residences. The future land use map request is to change from commercial to multifamily land use. The associated zoning case number is C14 2021-0015. The request is to change the zoning from commercial service conditional overlay neighborhood plan to multifamily 6 for multifamily apartments. The property owner is Shelby Lane Development, and you met Cass Brewer, and the agent is Alice Glasgow. So some general guidelines for tonight. Due to social distancing, in-person questions and comments have been moved to this online format. Everyone will be allowed to speak. We ask that you listen respectfully and actively, to criticize ideas, not individuals, commit to learning, not debating, avoid blame, speculation, inflammatory language, avoid assumptions about others, especially based on their perceived social group, and staff reserves the right to delete offensive language and remove offenders from the meeting. We haven't had any problems so far with our meetings, but we like to go through these guidelines anyway. So please feel free to type your questions into the chat at any time. Again, we ask that you postpone your general comments until the end of the Q&A session. This allows us to make sure all the questions are answered and we don't have to scroll through a bunch of comments trying to sort out the questions. But we will allow people to add general comments at the end. After the staff and applicant presentations, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand by clicking the hand symbol on the menu bar. Telephone participants will be able to speak during the Q&A session of the meeting. Attendees will be muted upon arrival and through the staff and applicant presentations. Then staff will open the floor to questions, to answer questions in the chat box by the attendees raising their hands to speak. Similar questions may be grouped together and answered together. Please mute your microphone when you are not speaking for the sake of sound quality and clarity of conversation. If you're having connection issues, you can turn off your video until called upon. So if you have questions after this meeting, you can send them to us and we will post them on the website within 5 business days, and that's the website. You can email or call me or Wendy with any questions or comments that you have. If you provide written comments, we will add them to the staff case reports that go before Planning Commission and City Council. If you live within 500 feet of the property, you will receive a notice in the mail when it's been scheduled for Planning Commission and City Council. You can obviously participate in these public hearings. If they're still going virtual, we'll be able to send you information on how to participate. So why is there a plan amendment application? So neighborhood plans are adopted by City Council as amendments to the Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan. City Charter requires zoning changes to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Most neighborhood plan amendment applications are amendments to the future land use map. And most plan amendment applications have an associated zoning application. So this map shows in blue areas that have City Council approved neighborhood plans, most of which have a future land use map. This is South Congress's future land use map. These colors represent broad land uses, and specific zoning districts are considered compatible with these broad land uses. So red is commercial, and it's consistent with commercial zoning. So this property has an existing future land use designation as commercial. The proposed land use would be orange, which is multifamily, which is consistent with the applicant's request for multifamily zoning. This chart shows the typical zoning districts that you can find in the broad land uses. As you can see, again, the multifamily is orange and the CS commercial zoning district is red. So this is a map that just shows the property and aerial view, an aerial view of the property. As I said, it's 8 acres. I like to add this Google map to show some of the surrounding uses. You can see I-35 to the east and the automobile dealerships along I-35, and then uses to the south, and the single family residences to the west. And it looks like to the north there are some industrial land uses. This is just a view on, I'm not sure if it's Weidemar or Weidemar Street looking south. This is a view looking north, and the property is to the left of your screen. This is the view on Shelby looking west. This is on Shelby looking east. And this map is the future land use map. You can see to the north, the purple represents industrial land use. To the southeast, you have red, which is commercial land use. And then to the west, you can see the yellow, which is single family land use. Here's the zoning map. Again, you can see the industrial zoning to the north, the LINP, the CSNP to the east and the south, and the SF2 to the west. This map shows the property in relation to the City of Austin's Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan and the Growth Concept Map. And we also overlaid the bus routes so you can see the public transportation in the general vicinity. So to the north along East Bend White Boulevard is the St. Edward's Activity Center. You can see to the east the McKinney Center, Dove Springs, with the purple showing the Job Center. So next is going to be Alice Glasgow's presentation. So I will stop sharing my screen. I can get out. Okay, Alice.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see that? Hello?
No, not yet.
Not yet. I think I know what happened. Doesn't. Maureen, give me a minute here. Should be up now.
Yes, now we see it.
Okay, good. So Maureen did a good job of showing several maps that reflect our subject site. My maps will be somewhat similar. So this is one that just shows walking distance from the subject site, the Shelby Lane, San Elmo. The site, the property is right here at Weidemar Lane. See the Weidemar, or one of you can correct us if we're mispronouncing the street name here. So we all need help. So the subject site is 8 acres and it's currently zoned CSCO. And here's the zoning map that shows the subject tract. So over here, so CSCO. The CS zoning allows a maximum building height of 60 feet. And the conditional overlay was part of the rezoning associated with the South Congress Combined Neighborhood Plan, and the conditional overlay that pertains to this site requires that that there be a 30-foot buffer when we adjoin single family. So on my next slide, which is our site plan, you'll be able to see how we're complying with that conditional overlay requirement that is baked into the South Congress Combined Neighborhood Plan. And this is our site plan. And you can see we obviously adjoin some of the homes on Colonial Park. We're in the backyard. So this is Shelby Lane. And as you can see here, so I'm going to walk you from the back to the front. So under CS zoning, as I indicated, the maximum height is 60 feet. CS zoning does not allow residential zoning. So we are asking for multifamily 6 zoning. And the reason for that is to allow us an additional story because, and to allow residential use. And I'll walk you through that. So under the city code, commercial property and multifamily uses have to comply with what is called compatibility standards. And under compatibility standards, the first 25 feet adjacent to single family use or zoning can not have any buildings or sidewalks. It just has to be an undisturbed buffer. It can be grass, it can be shrubs, but there are no buildings allowed. It's just called a no building zone. However, as I indicated earlier, the conditional overlay in the South Congress Combined Neighborhood Plan requires that when you adjoin single family, as we do here, we are required to have a 30-foot no building setback, and that is what is shown here. So our setbacks that reflect either the conditional overlay shown right there for compatibility standards that apply citywide between, for us, it's going to be the 30 feet to 50 feet. Your building height is where you can start having buildings, and your building can only be 2 stories or 30 feet. We do not have any buildings within that 30 to 50 foot setback. Between 50 feet and 100 feet setback from the single family home, so from here to there, this is really where we begin having buildings. So building 2, the area you see in white, that is where that indicates residential units. This building, number 2, will house 150 condominiums. These are for sale units. South of it, the gray is the parking garage that is going to service the 150 condominiums. To the south of that, the next building that adjoins the condominiums is going to be the multifamily building. Again, the white indicates where the residential units will be. It's called a wrap building. The gray is your parking structure. So your parking garage is inside, and then your residential units are outside, just like what you've probably seen that around. And then there's in the front, you'll see just another parking area, not the parking garage with buildings around it too. So it's sort of the 2 parking garages within this white envelope where you have residential units. We are proposing about 400 units, so 6 to 7 stories. So back to the zoning, because I know when we're asking for MF6 zoning, which allows a height of 90 feet, it's not that we need 90 feet of height. It's because we need at least 70 feet of height, because our current, to compare height to what we currently have, we can have an office building looking and situated exactly as these buildings are, and they could be no taller than 6 stories or 60 feet. However, with our proposed zoning of multifamily 6, we would be exceeding that 60 feet by 1 story by going to 7 stories closer to Weidemar Lane, as you can see on this plan. So right here, beyond the 200 to 300 foot setback, it's 60 feet. From this line up to here, you can go up in additional height. So this is where we would increase our height to another level of buildings to 7 stories. So we are further away from the residential development. So that's the development right there. Under water quality and detention, the city requires that we detain our runoff. So we will have a detention pond located right here. So our detention and water quality, the water quality just basically has a mechanism that cleans the water before it is released into the storm drain. And the detention pond retains water and releases the water so that the detention pond functions as though there was no development on this site. So your water runoff should be released at the same rate as it would be if the site was not developed. So that's what it's supposed to mimic. And our civil engineer can answer any questions you might have about the mechanics of the detention pond and exactly how it's going to be. It's my understanding it's going to be designed so that it's going to connect to a drainage that is already behind the homes, but it goes south towards the automotive business site. So under transportation, I know that's always a question. We know that we will need a traffic impact analysis. Staff has already told us that if we show up with a site plan that has 550 units, we will need a site plan during this traffic impact analysis at the time of site plan. So first we get the zoning, and after zoning, the transportation staff will be able to determine or tell us when we submit our site plan, what traffic mitigations will be required. So the transportation staff have told us that an assessment of required transportation mitigation, including the potential dedication of right-of-way and easements and participation in roadway and other multimodal improvements, will occur at the time of site plan application. And a traffic impact analysis requirement shall also be made part of that requirement. As part of our development plans, either with a subdivision or site plan, we are required to provide sidewalks along the boundaries of our property. So our property line along Weidemar Lane, we will have sidewalks. We will construct sidewalks at our own expense, my client's expense. And along Shelby Lane, along the boundaries of the property that we own. And that's a minimum requirement. Any other improvements, again, as the city's transportation staff has indicated, they will be able to make a determination when an actual plan for development is submitted. Now, we are sensitive to the need for affordable housing. While not 100% of these units will be affordable, we have let the housing staff know that the developer would like to voluntarily participate in the affordable housing program referred to as smart housing. And the smart housing, it's really an acronym, and the S stands for safe, M stands for mixed income, A stands for accessible, R stands for reasonably priced, and T stands for transit oriented. So we have indicated to the housing staff that we would like to volunteer 10% of the multifamily units to be affordable under the smart housing program, which calls for 60% at median family income. And then for the residential units to be sold, the affordability is broken into two parts. So part one is that 5% of the for sale units would be offered at 80% median family income and would be left as affordable for 99 years. And then another 5% to be offered at 100% median family income, also to remain affordable for 99 years. The multifamily affordability component, the affordable units would remain affordable for a total of 40 years, that is 40. I will conclude my presentation here and hopefully proceed to questions. And I want to add one more thing, that our unit mix includes efficiencies, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom units. So the development will have a family oriented unit so that you'll have homes with residents and with children too. Thank you so much for listening to me. I will pause here and stop sharing my screen.
Okay, well, as Alice has stopped sharing her screen, we can, anyone has any questions, excuse me, feel free to raise your hand and I will try to get to the order that people raise hands.
So Alice, you should probably keep your screen up in case somebody has a question about it.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to. All right.
Well, there was a question in the chat that was early on from George Kraber. It was asking about the compatibility setbacks, and I think you went into that detail. So the project will adhere to the city's compatibility standards. Is that correct, Alice?
Yes, we have to adhere to those requirements. They're pretty much. Well
Okay,
said.
I have a first hand up is from someone named George, no last name. George, can you unmute and ask your question, please?
Yeah, this is George Kramer. I'm a resident. I'm a little bit confused because according to what your diagram says, as far as the setbacks, let's see, how can I explain this? That within the zone, print is so small.
Do I need to share
It
it?
only
with-
allows, yeah, if you can make it larger, that'd be sure be helpful.
Yeah, hold on, George. Let me do that. I can make it larger. I just wanted to be able to let everyone be able to see.
Alice, there's a slider bar at the bottom right-hand screen. You might be able to zoom in there.
There we go. Yeah, I'm gonna.
And it disappeared.
I
Yeah.
can't see anything.
Is it on
Now
now?
it's back.
You can see it. Okay. I just wanted to go back. I'm going to zoom out because I shrunk it so you could at least see it and not. So I can certainly. So what do you want to
Okay.
see, George?
Well,
can make it big.
Okay, move it to this so I can see the setbacks in the property.
Yep, there.
All right, so keep going a little bit more. So you have your condo unit in there. Right here. All right, so if from 50 to 100 feet, you allow 3 stories. If you move over, you're requesting that part of that building, the one with the condos, is in that step back. And you're calling for 4 to 5 floors.
It's going to be
So-
step back. We have to step back. The city wouldn't, maybe just a graphic you can't see because it's just a plan, it's a drawing. We, at this line, the building, the way it will be designed, when you look at the actual, like what the building is going to look like, if you look like a cross section, it should show step back. We cannot exceed 3 stories within that zone. So there will be a step back. If this is just, you're just showing drawing. So we have to comply with that setback, George.
Okay, I understand. Excuse me, Alice. I understand that. It just has not been stated up till now. Okay.
Okay. I apologize for that if we weren't clear, but that's why we have questions. Thank you for asking that clarifying question.
And I got a few more. Let me put these up there.
Sure.
These are just I don't want to say minor. How do you do this again? Don't you hit enter? No. Did the other? Well, I'll ask the question. Are there plans to include a dog park at the property 4700? Hello?
I'm going to ask my, I believe there was going to be one. That's why a lot of all the green open spaces, there should be one. Cass or Paul, could you respond to that, please? A dog park, a dog?
Yeah.
Did we lose them? They're probably muted.
I'm right here, Alice. Thank you. Cass, you want to take it or me?
Go ahead, Paul.
Well, I mean, obviously, this is fairly conceptual, but to the gentleman's question, there's ample room for dog park, dog run, kind of dog areas. You know, we haven't gotten into the amenities, but definitely that is an attraction and an amenity that the residents want.
So as I understand what you're saying, you cannot give me a yes or no at this time.
Well, Mark, do you have plans for a dog park in the, we have room for it. I just don't know if it's actually drawn or shown right now.
Yeah, this is Mark Odom. I would assume, most of the buildings that we do these days do have dog parks and as a common amenity. And I would, even though it's not drawn, we certainly have the landscape and the availability of green space to allow for that. So I think what you're finding is the amenities have not been set just yet, but I would imagine, since it's such a common amenity, that it would be in this development.
Okay, let me add to that question. Are there any plans for any outdoor music venues or outdoor amplified music? Yes or no?
No.
I do not believe so.
No.
Okay,
Something we have in our developments.
okay, because they could throw a party out there and blast some loud music, which would then disrupt the neighborhood. Okay, I would request that the dog park and the music be included in a restricted covenant. when you make the decision? Yes or no?
We're taking notes, George. We're making a list.
Okay. One more, maybe one more question. Let's see. Okay,
George,
you
let me
answered.
George, let me ask you this. You know we are subject to the noise ordinance, so every property is just like all the residential development. You guys and us, we're all subject to the noise ordinance. You cannot have noise, and under compatibility standards, actually, we cannot exceed 70 decibels at the property line under compatibility. So that's already in the code today with any kind of noise, including loud music. So you don't need a restrictive covenant to do that. It's already in the compatibility standards.
Okay, let me explain my situation. I happen to live behind AutoNation's Toyota Service Center, and I can guarantee you that they are not 70 decibels at the property line. Yet they are supposed to agree to that too, obviously, and so you can see why I have some concerns.
Okay, yes, sure, I understand that, and I think we talked about this when we had the last meeting with you. We've already covered this in our previous meeting with you and with Mario Khan too. So, I know you asked if the code is already there with that noise, and APD enforces those rules citywide. So, what would a restrictive covenant add more than what is already in the code? And we're saying the code does that. So for anybody in the city has that problem, you call APD. Our site plan, when you go in with a formal site plan, it's going to have notes indicating that there are no, noise because of compatibility standards. You cannot have noise exceeding 70 decibels. So if there is any noise, I'm just trying to understand what more.
Right. Okay. I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
Still want to pursue the dog part, Bill. The other part is you just discussed that both Shelby Lane and Weidemar Lane are going to have improvement sidewalk. And I believe you said in those notes from that meeting that there's also going to be parking. You're going to also put parking places along the curbs and sidewalks, correct?
If the city allows it, but our development is going to be fully parked on site. We'll have adequate parking, but any street parking is a public street. So whatever street parking the city allows us, as they do elsewhere in the city, it's not going to be parking that is designated. I think that's what we were saying, unless
Alice, let me go ahead and excuse you. You said the street of Shelby Lane will be improved along the border of the property line with improved sidewalks and on-street parking improvement, quote unquote.
Okay. I'll let Bailey. Bailey, I think were you at that meeting when we met with George?
Excuse me, Alice. It wasn't at the meeting. It was at the paper that was questions from the South Congress Combined Neighborhood Plan Contact Team for questions for developers. Responded on that.
This is Bailey. I'm the civil engineer with WGI, like I said before. So as part of the project improvements, we absolutely will need to adhere to the city's sidewalk and planting zone requirements. This area is a suburban roadway, so what that'll have, you'll have your general a 7-foot planting zone, like a grassy area at the curb line, and then a sidewalk from there. Now, the allowance of on-street parking will be dictated by a few things. This does have a curve around it, so we're going to have to, adhere to any potential site distance requirements around that curve, as well as just the width of the road. That'll be coordinated, I think, further with site plan as we get the site plan laying stuff out, but there are definitely, safety requirements we have to take into account of site distance, driveway locations, roadway width, things like that. And that exact cross section has yet to be nailed down to confirm yes or no if there'll be parking allowed on site. But the distance and proximity to that curve would probably limit a good amount of on-street parking, George.
Okay, well, the concern is less about the on-street parking than it is about, as Maureen showed, the roadway is a secondary road. Mm-hmm. You're going to increase that. You're talking approximately, I don't know, let's say 1,000 cars going in and out of there. And that's going to be, and they're going to, excuse me, and they're going to funnel down Colonial Park Boulevard because it's a paved street, improved street. And so our concern is traffic through the neighborhood. We got kids here, we got elderly people, you know, so we have safety concerns.
Okay, George.
Understood. And
yeah, George. So what would you suggest? What is your suggestion here?
That you force the city to pave it. No, you know, I've already talked to the city. I've signed a release information because it appears that it's a secret deal, confidential, about the future improvements of Shelby Lane, Ariel Lane, and Weidemar Lane. So I have not been able to get anything from the city. And I'm going to be quite honest. I'm going to pursue this further because I have a lot of concerns. And I'm going to go ahead and end for now. And I'm going to let other people in the neighborhood have an opportunity to ask their questions. And if I have anything that comes back up while I'm listening, I'll talk later. Thank you.
The next person who has their hand up is, go ahead, Bailey. I'm sorry, I spoke over you.
Yeah, I'll just address just one item real quick. Just of note is the site will need to do what we call a subdivision plat in order to define the exact lot lines of the property, which is basically an administrative process for a site like this. But similar to the Champion Toyota site to the south, the city has identified Weidemar Lane and Shelby as, like George said, substandard roads from a quality standpoint. You know, it doesn't have drainage in it. It doesn't have curbs or sidewalk. So when Champion Toyota was designed and developed, they paid about $200,000 into an escrow account to the city to pay for improvements on their western half of the road. We expect a very similar circumstance here to pay into some funds with Weidemar and Shelby. Now, those funds and the amounts and the outcome of the traffic impact analysis that Alice said may dictate further improvements of the road. We won't know that till we do a further study. But the city will likely require several different studies associated with the site plan that take into account uses, locations, you know, make sure that we're funneling people in the proper direction and not sending them to and through the neighborhood at, you know, obviously fast speeds or, you know, high numbers of traffic volumes. And the improvements of the actual roadway itself will probably be something that are accounted for in more detail at that point. It's just at this stage, it's too hard to tell exactly what those improvements will be. But my gut tells me some repaving and definitely sidewalks at a minimum. Beyond that, we will know more at a later date.
Thank you.
Okay, the next person who had their hand up is Lynn Stepanenko. Could you please unmute and ask your question, Lynn?
Hi, everybody. Lynn Stepanenko here. I'm at 408, so that's the fifth house from the far, I guess, north side of Colonial Park Boulevard. And so I have a few questions and concerns. You know, first I want to say that you know, I'll just be pretty honest here and tell you that none of us is happy about this in our neighborhood, as you can probably doesn't surprise you. When we bought these homes in 2005, this area behind us has a gas line running through it. And so we bought our homes with the understanding that, you know, A, it was commercial property, and B, that there's a gas line running through that area, and that development was very unlikely because of the cost and the danger associated with moving the gas line. Can you tell me what the plans are to move the gas line, and what are your plans around safety for that to happen?
Lynn, I'll go and chime in, and Bailey will also embellish what I have to say because he's been involved, our civil engineer. So our civil engineering group has reached out to the gas company, and they have allowed us to relocate the gas line. If you can see the plan, I'm looking at where the new gas line is going to be relocated to, sort of just running parallel to Weidemar Lane and also along Shelby Lane. So that permission has been given by the gas company, and all safety measures will be adhered to. And Bailey can add to that if he need be.
The only thing I'll add is, you know, that was one of the first things that jumped out to me just as a professional engineer and taking into account safety aspects. And obviously, you know, Lynn, like you mentioned, it can be a very big impact to any type of development, whether it be a single family home nearby or a multifamily building. That gas line was originally, the easement was originally a Valero pipeline, you know, a very high pressured, high danger gas line. And sometime in the 80s or 90s, that Valero gas pipeline was abandoned and decommissioned. And in its place is a 12-inch Texas gas, natural gas pipeline that serves mostly, you know, homes and, you know, provides, if your home has gas, it provides the same gas for that. So it is, you know, a very important thing to take the safety of the relocation of that into account, but it is not the same type of hazardous material that a Valero natural gas pipeline would take. We, like Alice said, have coordinated with Texas Gas and identified locations that we could relocate it towards the road, which actually allows them to maintain it and access, you know, potential leaks a lot easier than where it is today. You know, happy to answer any further questions on that, but you know, that's the backstory of it and where we're looking to, you know, work with Texas Gas to make sure that we handle that relocation in a proper manner during construction of the site.
Okay, I likely may have follow-up questions, and my fellow residents may also have some follow-up questions about that. But the second issue is this wooded area is a natural bird habitat. I've only recently moved back into my home. I was on the East Coast for 12 years, and I moved back in February, just in time for the storm. And I've already noticed a number of major it's a migration stop for different types of birds. And of course, decimating the area is really going to impact that. And there's going to be, you know, a very clear and obvious environmental impact. Have you studied the migration pattern of birds in this area? And what are your plans to resolve or address any environmental impacts that may result?
Bailey, do you want to take that? I know that's a similar. Sorry, go ahead, Bailey.
That's not necessarily my area of expertise as a civil engineer, but the city code looks at these trees as mitigable trees, as most of them being cedars. You know, we have not looked at it in terms of an environmental migratory standpoint, so I can't really speak to that. But what I can tell you is that the city does have code requirement tree mitigation and tree plantings that the future landscape architect of the project will have to incorporate into the site in order to meet those requirements and tree locations. And one item that this does propose is maintaining those private backyard land, no build setbacks and natural buffers as dictated by the current zoning ordinance. That you know, if somebody were to come expand Champion Toyota all the way to the north without talking to y'all, they could basically bulldoze all that and just maintain that 30-foot on the back setback as is today.
So there hasn't been an environmental impact study on the migration patterns of birds to this area. That hasn't been done, correct?
Lynn, we haven't done that, and the city does not have any requirements for birds or protecting them or requiring you to do an assessment about birds in general. The only birds that are protected are by the federal government in the Texas area are the golden-cheeked warbler and the black-capped vireo. And that is by federal mandate, and where they migrate in the hill country, there's a requirement where you cannot cut certain trees, or you're going to within certain, like in the month of March, and that's a federal law that the city and obviously has to enforce regarding when you can clear your site. You can clear it, but it's a matter of which time of the year you clear it. So are you speaking of something similar where the birds migrate a certain time of the year here, but they're not part of the endangered species category?
I think I'm just speaking to generally if that impact has been, you know, if A, you're aware that this is a migration stop, A, and B, if there's been any sort of impact study done on that. It sounds like the answer to that is no.
The answer is no. The city does not have that requirement at all to do an assessment of that nature.
Okay. My next question is, and so I'm looking at the condo building. Will I be able to see that building from my backyard or from my back windows of my house? And then conversely, will any of those condo units be able to see into my backyard or into my home?
Well, the condos, how tall is your house? How many, is it 1 story or 2 stories?
It's a 1-story house.
1-story house. So you're zoned SF2, and under the SF2 zoning, I believe the maximum height is 32 feet, 35 feet, or 32 under McMansion. So you could.
It's 35 feet. I think this area isn't covered by McMansion.
Okay, yeah, it is, yeah. So you're allowed to go up to 35 feet. And here we are at, if you do, 30 feet, the height here is limited. We don't, just a little tip right here. If you can see my hand panning, can you see that, Lynn?
Yeah, I can.
That you can see in this area right here that the buildings can go to 2 stories or 30 feet right here. And that's the line here that is going to cut right here. So our step back buildings here will be no more than 2 stories at this end. Over here, the same thing over here where this black line is, it cuts off the 2-story right there.
So as I'm sitting in my backyard, I won't see a building from my backyard. Is that what you're confirming?
I hope it's probably not right here. And I don't know when it gets further away, because with the buildings, the height steps further away towards Weidemar Lane. So you get right here the entrance from Shelby Lane, the building here. We have a 2-level parking garage. I don't know if you're able to see it from back there at 2 stories.
So you're unsure at this point if I can see whether I can or won't be able to see buildings from either the back of my home or my backyard, correct?
I'm not sure. We can certainly do a cross section to see what,
That would be helpful.
Yeah, a cross section, and Mark can probably create a cross section from that end so we can see what the views. Mark, is that possible? Mark Odom?
Yes, that is possible. The other element to think about is any type of new trees or vegetation that could be planted to shield some of those backyard views.
So yeah, I would definitely want an update about that once you have that resolved or clarified. Another thing, this area is a residential buffer / private backyard behind the condo building. Yeah. Will that be open to residents? Because it seems like that's an opportunity for parties, gatherings, noise. Like many Americans, I now work from home. So in addition to this backyard, I have general concerns about the noise of construction. I have concerns about removing the trees and increased noise from both the building and also from I-35, which, as you can imagine, is already pretty loud. I'm sure that's going to get louder. I'm wondering if you've taken that into account. And I do have a bit of concern about this backyard area and how close that is to the property line.
So Lynn, from our property line in the back, there's the 30-foot no building zone. So you can't have picnics. There's just going to be a vegetative buffer. If it's grass, if the trees are there, they'll remain. There's no need to remove them because if you can't build there, there's no reason to remove them. It just provides an enhancement and noise buffering.
Right,
so,
but below that, where the residential buffer private backyard, those will be backyards where the residents will have access to. They'll be able to go outside in that back area, potentially have parties, gatherings, and there could be noise concerns there as well. Because right now, it's perfect. There's just the birds behind us, and so I'm concerned about late night parties behind my property.
Okay, well, we hear you. But yeah, that'll be their backyard. It's a communal area. They can walk here and use. George suggested, a dog park. Obviously, there's plenty of room to have a dog park in this area within the development. So yes, they'll be able to access back there.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there might be a way to move that residential outdoor area to further away from our property line.
And put it where? We're adhering to all the setbacks that are called for compatibility, and the building heights here would be no more actually than you're allowed for your residential. 3 stories or 30 feet. Under your SF2 zoning, you have 35-foot building height.
Understood. I'm just concerned.
And you have all the setbacks. So we'll do everything we can to provide buffering and screening so that you as many trees that can be planted back here provide additional buffering.
Right, but you can't really do anything about noise from parties or gatherings in that backyard area, can you?
Lynn, I think the city, there's a noise ordinance for entire city. So if your neighbor's having a party and being rowdy, the typical way to address that is to call APD and 911 for folks who are violating the noise ordinance. The same thing for construction. There are rules about what time they start construction, what time they end. So all those will be adhered to, and the residents will be made aware of that they are close to other homes, to be respective of.
I mean, I'm sure you can. You can try to make them aware of that, but as you know, there is a human behavior at play here. A couple of other questions. What will be the price? The prices on the condos. What's going to be? Do you have a ballpark idea of the prices yet?
I can just give you the range we gave in our educational impact statement. The condos will be selling for approximately $175,000 to $560,000, obviously depending on size. And the rents for the multifamily will be approximately $750 to $2,100. Again, that's based on what we know now, but could change depending on when the development is actually completed and what the prices or rents are at that time. But that's the approximate range.
My final question for now, at least, is when is construction slated to begin on this property?
It's going to, we have to do this in 2 steps. So it's going to probably, it won't be another year or so. And Cass and development team helped me out here because we have to get a subdivision approved. That takes 4 to 5 months. Site plan and transportation, traffic impact analysis, that process takes about 8 to 10 or 12 months, depending on how long the review exchange takes. So it won't be probably for a year and a half before construction begins, just based on the approval sequencing.
And that would be construction on the gas line or on the buildings themselves, or the roads, or the whole project? Can you clarify? Yeah,
the whole project, you start off with the clearing of the site and relocating the gas lines. That would be the first thing that would happen before the buildings go up. So all those major site clearing has to occur before your actual building pads go up. And the plan here is to actually phase development. So you have parking garage built so that the workers can park on site. So you're only just developing half of the property and then moving on to the second one. So you're not having folks parking on the streets.
So if you're comfortable giving me a date for, let's say, all of your plans go forward as you would like, what month and year would the very beginning of this project start?
Cass or Paul?
Well, Alice did a good job explaining. I mean, we're right now, depending on timing, we're looking about 18 months from now. So, but that would be in 2023.
And then, of course, I guess my other last, and I'll yield my time to others, but my concerns about my property value, or the property value for me and my neighbors. As you can imagine, having the woods behind me is a selling point to my home for both renters and potential buyers, and I know that's going to be impacted by this project. Do you have any comments about sort of putting up a development knowing that it's going to negatively impact the property values of the neighbors in the existing area?
Lynn, I'm just going to answer from the perspective of what the Travis County Appraisal District that tells that your property values are going to be based on, from an appraisal standpoint, for Travis County's appraisal standpoint, based on what the price point of homes around here. So the homes and not the wooded area will dictate their appraised value. So
right.
I'm hoping that should not affect the value of property, but enhance it.
I
I
would,
guess the
I
level,
think it might affect it more than enhance it, but
the level of landscaping and, you know, things that we put into our communities is a much higher level for someone that wants to live there versus a commercial use that you might see represented of the Toyota shop and things like that. I guess the customers there are not really care about the plants and things, where we we put a lot of effort into landscaping and land planning and placemaking in our communities. So I think you'll have better opportunity for that with our development than the current zoning, in my opinion.
so that's all my questions for now.
Okay, the next person with their hand up is Daisy Long. Daisy, I know you also put their questions in the chat. You just want to read those?
Well, so basically my questions have been the same as my fellow, neighbors about the traffic. As you know, the roads are extremely narrow. And we already have difficulty with traffic as it is. We had to put in speed bumps because of people speeding. We had to get that. It took 4 years to get that to the city of Austin to get that changed. We have tons of kids playing outside, skateboarding, riding bikes. And even though there is, the traffic did die down after the speed bumps were put in. But we can't accommodate a residential area like that. I mean, as is, but I know you said you're gonna work on that, but still there's gonna be heavy traffic once that condos are put in. The rerouting of the gas line, again, is a big concern. I'm the third house. I'm 404 Colonial Park. So I have a 2-story. My bedroom and bathroom window face the condominiums or face this unit. I will have no privacy. People can look in. I have big windows. Again, also like Lynn said, the animals in the back, we have foxes that live back there, tons of birds, lizards, many like the horned toad and the like chameleon-like native Texas animals live back there, which is, I mean, to me, I love going and seeing that every morning and afternoon. And then also the property value. If you said you're listing it at 175,000, our houses right now are appraising for 500,000, 700. I mean, seriously, one like it's 350 per square foot. That is going to bring down our property value significantly.
Daisy, I think I said, Daisy, the range was, the low end was 175,000 for your smaller units. The higher end was 560,000.
What is the square footage of the 175?
Hold on.
Right now we're getting 350 a square foot. And since that is like going to be 30 feet from me, I mean, that is going to bring it down.
I think they're roughly like that. There's very few of those, about 500 square feet or something like that.
So we have a 1-bedroom, a unit mix for, I'm looking here for the for sale.
There it is.
For sale. Your smallest units will be 500 square feet. And then your 1-bedroom, 800 square feet, 2-bedroom, 1,100 square feet, and 3-bedroom, 1,600 square feet.
So that's roughly $350 a foot.
A square foot.
Yeah.
And to me also, it just sounds like this is a done deal. It sounds like we had no choice in it because you already have these plans, the number of people sitting in on this meeting. And I just got notified a week or 2 ago from the city. I don't know. I feel like we were railroaded in this and we've had no say. And this is our backyard, even though I know we don't own it. But this was one of the main draws why I moved here. And I've made this my home for 16 years. And now all of a sudden I feel like it's going to be gone. So I'm extremely worried and upset, as I'm sure you would be with your own home. I mean, I don't know that you would like a condominium, 540 unit in your backyard. This is going to be very close to me and where people can see in. I don't know. like I said, I feel like this has happened and it's already going to happen, and we have no say in it. So I don't know. I know I don't have a question. I just have comments. And so I thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Okay, there's some question in the chat that weren't Daisy. She pretty much, there's a question up here too from someone from Kena. Will the entire site be cleared and replanted, or is it going to preserve, I guess what they're asking, what are you going to preserve or not?
Were you asking me that? I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. You could go ahead and mute. I was asking Alice the questions. The more questions were in the chat. You're muted, Alice.
Muted. Bailey, could you please respond to what trees are most likely going to remain and
Yeah, likely most of the trees based on our tree survey look to be cedar trees, which are they're not seen the same from the city's perspective as a 30-inch live oak, which we would call a heritage tree. Based on the by code buffer that we are maintaining off the single family homes, we're likely going to preserve most of that vegetation. There's no need to go in there. Like Alice said, we can't build in there. So no need to spend the money and the time or even mess with the existing natural habitat. Once a majority of the remainder will be cleared once the gas line is moved, however, and then we do have to mitigate the cedar trees either through fees in lieu to the city into a city tree fund or on site in tree plantings. There'll be a majority that you can see we have a lot of green space here relative to the site, especially a site this big. They'll be planted with trees like red oaks, pecans, oak trees, things like that in that green space per the city requirements.
What about the wildlife that currently lives back there? Like I was saying, there's several foxes that live back there. I don't know all of it. I can't name them, but do you have something where you relocate them to an area that would be their natural habitat?
I have not seen that in my 8 years in the city of Austin in an area like this as something that has been completed on an urban project like this. When I say urban, I mean kind of in the urban core of Austin. As you start getting further west into the Edwards-Aquifer area where you do have golden cheek warbler habitat, there is more mitigation efforts or things that you have to take into account at that time.
Okay, there's another question from George regarding light pollution. It says concerns about light pollution from outdoor lights. When AutoNation built their service center, they installed city-approved lighting in the parking lot. Those lights light up our backyards like a Friday night football field in Texas. Our neighborhood requests input for shielding exterior lights so this doesn't happen with the 4700 Weidemar Lane project.
George, I'll respond to that. I think we also respond for the benefit of those who are not involved. Compatibility standards require that all lighting should be shielded and hooded away from single family use or zoning. So our lighting, all exterior lighting will have to demonstrate that. And the site plan that the city is going to review will have to have demonstration and information to show exactly where the lights are and how they're going to be, but there will be adhering to the shielding requirements of the city code.
Okay, let me make a quick comment, Alice. The lights at AutoNation's Toyota Service Center were per the city code. Okay, they fit the city code. Yet the light in our backyard, as I stated, was bright. We had to meet with AutoNations. In fact, one of the gentlemen from Florida came down. We showed them our backyards. They actually put shields around the light. So the lighting may meet the code, but the lighting may not. The lighting may be a problem for us as property owners. So I would like to be able to have, well, let me rephrase that. my neighbors to the north, I'm sure would like to have some input in appropriate shielding for any exterior or building lights so their backyards aren't lit up.
George, George, what might probably help, because, you know, zoning, just zoning, it's not a permit. I think that you, maybe I can't convince you with zoning, but what might help you and everybody else, that you will get another opportunity at the site plan stage you will be notified. The same people are notified for the zoning will be notified when any application goes in for subdivision and for site plan. And at the site plan stage, you can review the plan and see how the lighting is being addressed. And if you have concerns, you can always appeal that to the planning commission. If you feel that the project as proposed at the time of site plan is not adhering to the lighting requirements, you can certainly do that. But in addition to that, the other nation, they probably have lights because it's a commercial use. We have residences here, so any bright lighting is going to affect them too. So I think you have a benefit here by having a residential development as opposed to a commercial building or an automotive repair or maintenance place where there are lighting requirements, they're protecting cars, as opposed to here people want to sleep and it's residential to residential. So I think
Okay, Alice, let me just say this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend the time dealing with the city on the lights. We didn't do it with Auto Nations. We dealt with the developer and the owner. What I'm saying is, we want the opportunity as a neighborhood to deal with the developer and the owner of this property in order to make sure that we don't have light pollution, and as people talked about, noise pollution into our property and our houses. I'm not going to go through the city. We didn't go through the city on that deal. We had to work with the developer.
Okay, got it. And we are of course agreeable to that. We're going to be neighbors, so definitely you've met Paul and Cass, and they want to be good neighbors. So yes, of course we'll work with everybody and get your input. So absolutely.
We have no interest in putting giant pole lights and big floodlights in the back, and those are people's homes as well for us. So everything would be in this zone would be shielded. The parking is concealed. So you're looking at residential, level there. It's not going to be like a parking lot.
Okay.
We have another question in the chat from Kina. For the affordable units, both rental and ownership, will a housing partner be employed to ensure fairness and equity when vetting tenants and buyers? I guess she's referring to that some of your projects are going to be affordable. How's that going to be tracked over time?
That's tracked through the housing department staff. That when we go in for the site plan and building permit, at the building permit stage, there's an agreement that a restrictive covenant that actually ensures that with that time frame, if you're going to have your units for so many years, and then they have to be there's an entity that has to, a third party that has to certify that each person that is renting at the affordable rent actually qualifies as that meets the affordability requirement for income level to qualify to pay a lower rent or to buy the unit at a lower cost price. So that's pretty much verified by the City of Austin Housing Department, which requires the developers to get a third party entity that certifies those units over time and runs with the land.
Okay, there's two people with their hands up. I'll go to the first is Lynn. Lynn, can you unmute and ask your question, please?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we might have the opportunity. So I'm looking at this map again, and I think my main concern with, withstanding the whole development is a concern. But this building number 2 and the way that kind of juts out and gets really close to that 30 to 50 foot setback, and there's really 3 bands here, and that corner of building 2 kind of juts into that 3rd band. Would there be any way we could work with you to not have building 2 go beyond that 100 foot setback? Is that at all an option for us? at this point?
Well, Mark is there. Mark is the architect as far as designing it or moving it. I think, as I indicated earlier, that is step back, while the line right here cuts right through there, and that is where you have the 3 stories starts back there. So that's within that zone that it's going to be the 2-story, 3 stories from back here. So Mark, can you speak to that? If there's
Yeah, sure. And this is Mark Odom, and although this is very preliminary site plan, we will be mindful of how close we're getting, and if we don't have to reach into the band that you're speaking about, then we'll make every intention to do that. There is limited, due to everything else that's fitting on the site, there is limited space, for things to get rearranged. So after this process, we will go through another, iteration or several iterations in terms of how the building really sits, on the site. But again, we will be respectful of the distancing and the proximity and the shielding as much as we can.
I would feel very comfortable if you strongly consider not building within that 3rd band. That it's hard for me to see that 50 to 100 foot setback, even keeping in mind the 2nd story and the stepped building, etc. I mean, I'm looking at that, and that's horrifying to me, right? Like I would ideally like for no building to happen within that 3rd band as well. And as an architect, I'm sure there are ways around that.
Sure. We without having gone through that process yet, and really further investigating how the building, impacts the site, other than what you see on the site plan here, yes, we can try to make every intention to see if that's achievable, or to try to minimize it as much as possible.
So what would be the process for that?
That is really the design process, that we go through after zoning is approved and we understand that the project is viable. Then we put pencil to paper again and really strategize what the site strategies, the building strategies, and all everything in between, so that still is to come.
I'm not entirely comfortable with that answer. I'd really like to find a way to get some guarantee that we not go beyond that line. Mm-hmm. How would we approach that as a community?
Alice, you might want to answer this, but
and I think we can take you, obviously, we do have site constraints. We've heard your point. As we continue to refine the plan, we'll keep that in mind, and we don't really typically get into final refinement until we know we have the zoning. So you really know what the final product is going to be when we're really ready to, if we get the zoning, and when we go to the civil engineering plans and architecture plans. So of course, we've heard your comments, and as the design team looks at tweaking and refining, they'll take a look at what as you can see, you have this, as you know, the city regulations that give you, here are your boundaries, here are your setbacks, and this is what you need to work with. Here are your bucket of tools to use, and here are your boundaries. So we're trying to work within those boundaries, and that's where you have the step back, and we're working with those step backs that are in the code. So we'll do the best we can, but just want you to keep that in mind, that we'll do everything we can, and hope that we can achieve some of the things that you want from a design standpoint.
Okay, we have 10
made it
minutes.
difficult.
Sorry, I mean to step on your there, Lynn. I'm saying we have 10 minutes left, so we have one call. We have one person with their hand up, and then 2 questions in the chat. I'm going to go to the person with their hand up, Daisy. Would you on mic and please kind of limit your question so we can get to the 2 others, so we can.
Sure.
So
I was wondering how, I have 2 questions. How far along are we in this process? I mean, is it approved and what have you? And also, is there any other facilities built by this particular developer that we could go look at and kind of get a general idea of what this is going to look like?
Cass, here's your chance to tell them about other, let me talk about the process before Cass tells you other projects that you can go look at. So we're in the zoning process. So what would happen here is to the planning commission would be the first place we go for public hearing once the city staff schedules a hearing date for the commission to consider the zoning change and neighborhood plan amendment. And then from there, we move to the city council. So ultimately the city council would decide what our request, if you will. And then now Cass can talk about other projects that they've done. You can go look at to see.
Yeah, I'm an Austinite, a Texan, definitely care about reputation and type of communities we build. I mean, the best look at some of the stuff that we're doing, look up legacy communities. We've got a page there. You can drive to look at our all different projects. We're building stuff in West Austin, Lakeway, East Austin, South as well. So we build communities.
But I'm sorry, is this community going to be similar to the ones that, I want one that's similar because, you know, I hear low income housing, and I know a lot of Austin has that, you know, you have the affordable housing, but as a, you know, for my property value, that's my concern as well. So, and, you know, the neighborhood as well. So do you have any similar in this price range that?
We have one under construction called Gravity ATX. You can,
okay.
And that's the only one I have under construction. It's similar to this right now, but you can look at, like I said, legacy communities. You can see the portfolio of stuff that we're doing.
Would you consider this like a higher end apartments or, I mean, what exactly, how would you classify this?
I would classify this as what we call type A, which is the highest end of apartments, of multifamily you can do. And this, I mean, we're talking about this condominium building. This is a $30 million structure, so it's not something that, it's inexpensive by any means.
These are not apartments or condominium. They have the option to buy.
There's 2 different uses here.
Okay.
On the site. One's for sale, is building 2, and one is for rent.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry, I had a little trying to get back. I think the MFI for a family of 4 in Austin is somewhere, and I'm going by memory, around $70,000. Probably sounds about right. So that just kind of gives you what a household income at 80% MFI would look like. There's some questions here. When the development property was overlaid, it appears the property directly to the south between the 4700 development and AutoNation Service Center. Does Shelby Lane Development own that?
No.
Okay.
No.
And when city engineers calculate drainage from 4700 Weidemar, have they used the new 100-year floodplain, the Atlas 14?
We will be using the Atlas 14 new 100-year rainfall that's standard and required for every site in the city of Austin. In terms of floodplain, there's no floodplain in this area technically. In terms of like, if you were thinking about it in terms of flood insurance. However, we as professional engineers and as developers, you know, obviously flooding concerns, pipe overruns, drainage in general is a huge safety concern and concern of ours. Just, frankly, from a liability concern, especially in a location like this, we want to make sure we get it right and don't cause any adverse impact on neighboring single-family homes. When the AutoNation site was built, they built a diversion channel along their western boundary. A portion of our drainage will be going to that, and it needs to leave the site as the way it's all draining today and causing no adverse impacts, from the point it leaves the site onward to the city system. So in terms of site, when we do the site plan design and detailed drainage design, that pond will be detailed in such a way that returns the flows back to the existing conditions using the Atlas 14 rainfall events. So happy to elaborate in any more detail on that, but short answer, yes, we will be using that.
Okay. The question is, if this request rezoning to this zoning request is denied, what does the project look like then?
You could have an office building that could look just the same, 6-story building, 60 feet tall. It just won't be residential. If it's not residential, it would be a commercial use, and an office use would make the most sense.
Okay, and then last question we have in the chat is, as I listen, this is from George, as I listen to everyone representing the developer, it appears that the answer to the concerns we are asking will not be actually addressed until after the rezoning is approved. Is that correct or not?
Can you repeat that again?
Okay, as I listen to everyone representing the developer, it appears that the answer to the concerns that the community has will not actually be addressed until after the rezoning is approved. Is that correct or not?
Well, I wouldn't say that they'll all be addressed then, just that, I guess the nature of the questions relate to refinement of the plan after the zoning is approved regarding your transportation, your traffic improvements. The city staff can only weigh in at the time of site plan. Design, the same thing. So to a certain extent, the majority of what the project will actually end up addressing or improving, we'll get to have more information or feedback from city staff when they see a site plan. Okay. So I think it just goes both ways, that additional information is provided then.
There's a question from Lynn. Will the community receive notice when site prep begins? Apparently, she said when this happened before, air quality was impacted and people had asthma issues from the pollen from the clearing. Also, and when will we be notified about the traffic study?
As far as I'll go to the traffic study. When the site plan is submitted, people will get notice. When construction starts, I don't think that there's a notice that goes after construction, but when the site plan goes in with a transportation review, they will be reviewed together with the site plan. So anybody can review the application for the site plan and the traffic impact analysis, because they will be concurrent. They'll be reviewed at the same time. It will be available for review at that time.
Okay, and the last question, well, because we have 2 minutes left. Has this already been finalized that this area will be developed no matter what the zoning outcome?
It will be developed either way. It's either residential or an office building. So if we get the zoning to multifamily, it will be the condos and multifamily. If it's not, the zoning is not changed, yes, it will be developed with a similar layout as we have here. Just be an office buildings with the parking garages. Just look at the footprints you have here. You can assume those can just be office buildings with the current zoning. So your footprints and regulations don't change, just your use.
Okay, and Lynn, if you make it really quick with a question, unmute yourself, because we have, we're running up against the clock.
I think all my questions have been answered. I think my outstanding concern, I just want to make clear, my outstanding concern, if this were to go forward, is I really would like to consider that condo development, how far it comes close to our properties, and that would be my main concern.
Okay.
Wait, I hear you, Lynn. This is Cass. consider those options.
Okay, so Maureen, Alice, you want to stop sharing so Maureen can put up the last slide so we can get.
Yes, I'll get back in here and okay, there we go. Success.
Okay.
We got it
Well,
all.
Maureen, want to tell them, well, we've kind of already gone over it, but kind of briefly go over what the next steps in the process are. And here is the contact information for both Maureen and Wendy, who is the zoning case manager.
Yeah, so the next steps, the plan amendment team will look at the plan amendment request. The zoning planners will look at the zoning request, and then we will make a combined staff recommendation. Once we do that, we'll work with the applicant on scheduling it for Planning Commission and City Council. We will also work with the South Congress Planning Contact Team on their recommendation that we can add to the staff case reports once the Planning Commission and City Council dates are finalized. And let's see, any comments that we receive, if you send them through the email, we will add them to the case reports. Even after this meeting officially ends, I will stay online. If the participants in the meeting tonight would like to type in your general comments, I can take those comments and add them to the case report as well. What I usually do when I summarize the meeting, I'll have the meeting with the Q&A section. And then at the end of the Q&A section, I'll just have a section that says comments. And then I can just cut and paste your comments from the meeting, this chat box, and type it into the case report. So if whoever wants to stay on a little bit longer and type in your comments, I can hang on past 7:30 for that. Any questions about the process?
Oh, just with that, I just quickly looked up for a 4-person household, the median family income for here is $78,100 for 80% MFI. Median, yeah, MFI. So if there's no other questions, we can wrap up the meeting and go about our evenings, and I'll stop the recording. So thank you very much for coming. And if you have questions, you can contact Maureen or Wendy. With that, I'd like to wish you a good evening.
So like I said, I'll hang on a few more minutes if people want to just go ahead and type remaining comments.